Hello viewers, and welcome again to Discovering Truth, and I am Pastor Forbes from the Gateway Abiding Word Ministries here in the Gambia in West Africa. We are going to start a new series. I intend for it to be a 4-part series, but as you know, sometimes the time is short and we can extend to maybe 5 or 6 parts, but I believe that this is important to us all. My generation, the generation after me, my children's generation, and their generation. And it's important for every generation, even transgenerationally, globally. So I want to speak on values system, or our sense of value. What are our value system? What are the things we hold on to that without shame and with a lot of sense of deep pride and joy, we hand over and pass on to the next generation? Lifestyles, habits, cultures, belief systems, experiences do not just happen out of the blues. They all find their ways and are properly situated in what we hold in high esteem, what we cherish, what we value, what we hold very close to our hearts. And all that put together determines how we live, what we approve of, what we endorse, what we celebrate, what we stay away from, what we disapprove, what we eschew, if I should use biblical language, what we keep away from and keep our children and those we love and maybe our work colleagues, our businesses, our relations, associations away from. It all boils down to the values we have and the value system. And that's true for a nation. For somebody to be able to live, work, and to a point where in ripe, good old age, they expire into eternity without things being said that were deliberately evil, bad, ignoble, means that they kept their values regardless whether times were hard, times were great, whether people were watching, whether people turned a blind eye, whether it was in broad daylight, whether it was in the quietness of secrecy. The way they have lived or continue to live is such that it speaks of their sense of value. So I want to start from the scriptures, as always, and I'm going to look at the New Testament book of 2 Timothy. You are aware, or you might be made aware if you look through the Bible, there are a couple of books that are 1st and 2nd, or 1 and 2, and there is one which is 1, 2, and 3. Towards the very end of the Bible, you have 1st John, 2nd John, 3rd John. But both in the Old Testament and in the New Testament of the Bible, we have 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles in the Old Testament. And you come into the New Testament, we have 1st and 2nd Corinthians, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, 1st and 2nd Timothy, we have 1st and 2nd Peter, we have 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. And so we are looking at 2 Timothy. That's the second book that was written to this disciple Timothy by Paul, the apostle, whose life was transformed, the born-again apostle. And I'm reading just verse 5 as part of the foundational text for this series entitled Value System. So 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 5. And for those who follow, as I always say, just type in your search bar, in your search engine, 2 space bar TIM, Tim or Timothy, and just put chapter 1, verse 5, and it will pop up regardless the translation. I like to use the New King James Version because it has very little or no thou, thine, the Old English. So it's just modernized English, but nothing in intent and purpose has been compromised. So 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 5 reads, and this is Paul speaking as inspired by God. When I call to remembrance, when I recall, when I think of the genuine faith that is in you, which first dwelt in your grandmother Lois, Lois, as well as your mother Eunice, Eunice, I am also persuaded is in you also. When I call to remembrance the genuine faith that is in you, which dwelt first in your grandmother and your mother, and now you. I think there are many scripture references I can use as foundational to this topic, but I believe this one speaks it, because what we see here is a faith described as genuine faith, sincere faith, unfeigned faith, no airbrush, no coloring, no counterfeit, no make-believe, or like, you know, we like to say in Gambia, for men pleasing for the eye seeing of men. Paul describes it as a genuine faith, literally meaning unhypocritical, as plain as you come. What you see is what you get is what there is. Paul is saying to this young disciple of his, as I'm relating with you, and as I'm mentoring you, and as I am discipling you, I can tell by experience, by relating to you in close quarters, that your faith, your sense of belief, your choices, your values, your commitments, your vision, your desires is genuine. They are all genuine. And I can see that it is something that has been transferred to you from your mother, Eunice, who also got it from her own mother, Lois. So it has been a generational transfer of faith, a general transfer of value systems. What I see you doing, I remember your mother did it. And if the mother is still alive, so I can see that's exactly where you got it from, because this is what your mom does. This is how your mother will do it. And let me quickly say, this could also be further on, you know, the contextual reality here is that this young man, Timothy, his father was a non-Jew and his mother and grandmother were, it's like two religions coming together. So his faith expression came from his mother, who got it from her own mother. All right. So, but it could also be from the father. And quite honestly, the reality is that it should be from both parents, because you do not want to have an institution, a family, a government, an organization, an enterprise where there is a divided value system. The value system is not together, it's not synergized. The board does one thing, the management team is on another page, the staff, you don't want that. It's division. So Paul the Apostle is saying to this young man that the way you live, the way you speak, the way you do everything, the things that are really critical, crucial, and important in your life, I can see that they are not just afterthoughts. They are not just impulsive, impetuous things. You are not somebody who believes in situational ethics. One man's meat is another man's poison. It depends on how you see it, where you are. Nobody must say that I have not been tempted before. Nobody should say never. There's nothing like that. I can see that the way you make decisions, the way you live, the way you manage your visibility, the way you do things, the things you endorse, the things you approve of, the things you stay away from, the places you go to, the places you don't go to, the friendships, the acquaintances you keep, the things you do not lend your signature to or your vote to. Tell me that this is something that has been worked out diligently, deliberately, over time. And permit me use this English phrase, it is now second nature. Actually, it should be first nature. So we can predetermine and predict what you will do, what you will not do, where you will go, where you will not go, what you will say, what you will not say, whether you will take a bribe or not, whether you'll be corrupt or not, whether you'll stand for the truth or not, regardless, we can tell. And I see that in you, young Timothy, because you saw it lived out before you by your mother and your grandmother. And so a situation arises and young Timothy doesn't have to wonder, what should I do? Let me go and ask my mom. Let me ask grandma. Grandma, what would you do? He knew exactly what he would do because the value system of his household had been, if you like, enshrined, engrafted deeply in his conscience, his consciousness, his soul, his spirit, and it comes out in his verbal communication. It is seen in his body language. It is what we expect. So I read it again. When I call to remembrance the unhypocritical faith, a genuine faith, the sense of value that is in you, I remember that it's what your mother does or did if she's passed, and it's what your grandma also did. So you got it from your mom got it from grandma. And if we want to go one generation backwards, maybe grandma got it from great-grandma. So the sense of value is like a consistent fine thread, unbroken by events, external pressure, external stimuli. I will be revisiting this as this series continues. There is another scripture I want to look at, and I'm sure quite a number of people have heard this scripture before. I have made reference to it many a time on this program. It's in the book of Proverbs. Proverbs, if you take the Bible and you try and look for the middle, chances are you're going to open to the book of the Psalms. There are 150 chapters or books that make up this, like a compendium of a library. There is 150 Psalms. After Psalms is Proverbs. Proverbs, there are 31 chapters. We're looking at chapter 22 and verse 6. And this is an instruction. You can print it in color. You can put a canvas. You can make it your bookmark, your screensaver. You can make it a magnet on your fridge. You can put it in your mirror when you are brushing your teeth. This is what it says. Train up a child in the way he should go, she should go. And when they are old, they will not depart from that training. And that's why child training, child upbringing, child grooming, we all know as biological, spiritual, social, intellectual parents, mentoring people, being their role models, it's very difficult to pass things on because you are in some ways almost interfering, to put it lightly, with DNA structure. To put it lightly, please don't take me on that. It's like somebody is used to doing something in a particular way and you are upgrading them to maybe, let me use the Bible phrase, a more excellent way, the best practice, the proper way of doing things. Maximum results with minimum effort and trauma. Train up a child. It didn't say discuss with the child, ask them their opinion, train them in the way. Ladies and gentlemen, parents, older brothers and sisters, there's something the Bible calls the way. Train the child in the way that they should go. And when they are old, that training would have become, again, second nature or first nature. They know exactly what to do when a situation comes. So you find parents teaching their children to say thank you, no thank you, yes please. I mean, the one most popular one is not to take things from strangers, whether food, whether money, and things like that. Not to just trot along with somebody who you don't know. It's grooming, it's upbringing, it's training. Because as you know, the child comes like a blank slate, like canvas. And everything we do is like an indelible imprint upon their heart. That's why one of the terrible things you can do is abuse a child, use abusive language to them, let a child grow up in a violent environment, in a toxic environment, psychologically traumatized environment. The child will pick it. So children basically echo things. And there are these little video reels you see on social media. The father is watching football with his son and he says, oh, and the little child too says, oh, you know, and he crosses his leg and the child crosses his leg too. He doesn't know why the legs are crossed, but if daddy does it, I should do it. So you train up a child, you embed value system into the child. Why? Because 15, 16, 17 years later, sometimes 13, this child will leave the house. I remember our daughter left the house at 13 to go to boarding school. It was like heart-wrenching. You've been with this child for 13 years, you know her bedroom, you know everything, you cuddle, you chat, you laugh, and suddenly she's going to boarding school in another country. And boarding schools had rules and regulations, exit times, visitation. You can only visit maybe 3 times in the year. I remember the first time I visited my daughter, she was like, Daddy, are you going? My heart just broke. I almost wanted to drag her. Look, let's go back to Banjo. But am I happy? Yes, I am grateful and thankful to God. Train up a child. Give them value systems, because a time is going to come when you will not be there to tell them. But the toolbox of value systems, the roadmap of value systems will tell them exactly how to navigate regardless where they are. And one value system is that phrase that says, we are this, we do not do this. We are this, we endorse this, we tolerate that. I am a Forbes, we do not do that. I am a Christian, I do this. I am a Gambian, I do not do this. It's part of our ethos, our value system as a nation. And that's what I am building up to, I'm sure you know. Train up a child in the way that he should go, or she, and when he or she is old, they will not depart from it. Let me quickly read 2 more, and I will bring this first part to an end, because I just want to lay the foundation. Way back in the old days, in the Old Testament, when God was speaking through Prophet Moses to the Hebrew people, the Israelites, as they were being taught the ways of God and the laws of God, there is some instructions that they were given. Of course, the laws were about 700, about 690 to 700 laws, including the Decalogue, the 10 commandments, thou shalt not, those 10 commandments, you know. And here in the book of Deuteronomy, which is the 5th book of the Torah, after Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, you have Deuteronomy, the second counting. In chapter 6 and verse 7 and verse 8, this is what it says. You shall teach these laws diligently to your children. You shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. In other words, wherever the children are and you are, you are reminded of the laws. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is what we approve of. This is what we endorse. This is what we do not do. We can't be ensnared by this friendship, acquaintance, association. We don't go to these places. We don't do that. We micromanage our visibility. We want to be in places where God's name is being honored, and we cherish the heritage of our country, that we don't soil its name, tarnish its integrity, etc. And it doesn't only stop there. It goes from verse 17 again. You shall diligently keep the commandments of the Lord your God, his testimonies, his statutes which he has commanded you. And you shall do what is right, verse 18, and do good in the sight of the Lord, that it may be well with you, that you may go in and possess the land which God swore to your fathers. When your son asks you in time to come, what do these things mean? Then you shall say to them, we were slaves of Pharaoh in Egypt, and the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand, and the Lord showed us signs and wonders before our eyes, great and terrible, against Egypt, against Pharaoh, against his household. Then he brought us out from there, that he might bring us in to give us this land which he swore unto our fathers. So when you are able to know your history, know your heritage, know your ancestry, know your genealogy, I believe you want to carry it and add value to it. And that's why we should not find ourselves wanting what we call the good old days, because ours today should have been an enlarged, embellished continuum form of the good old days as now the better days. But that can only happen, ladies and gentlemen, and as I conclude the introductory part 1, as we have proper value systems. Something that we can say, I saw it in the father, I saw it in the mother, I saw it in the grandparents. There's a phrase in English that says, the apple does not fall far from the trees. What do we expect? I'll be surprised if you didn't turn out well, because I know your father, I know your family, I know your parents taught me. And if I, who am not biological to them, have turned out this well, what about you that lived in the house? So as we continue next week, by the grace of God, and in the 3rd week and the 4th week, we'll be asking ourselves, what is the Gambian value system? Are we happy with what we have? The things that are going around our quarter, strange murder country, strange murders, corruption in levels that you can't understand if they're true as we read them in the papers and listen to commissions. Has something gone wrong with our value system? And if so, why? And I'm sure with this series, we'll be able to do some repair to get back on track. So we bequeath from Lois to Eunice to our own Timothys a proper value system. And they would also give it to others. Until I come your way, by the grace of God, next week, this is Pastor Forbes saying, think about this thing. Think about your value system personally, your family value system, your workplace, wherever you are, and we'll come and dovetail into the nation's value system. And if we have it right, I'm sure we'll all be happy. May God keep us all. Until we meet again.